Hello, hello, hello. You have tuned in to our Monday night broadcast. Let's unwind with the Evans. I'm your co host, Jessica Evans.
And I'm Thomas Evans. I'm her other half.
Other half, better half.
Yeah, I'm her other half. She's the better half. I'm the other half.
You're the better one, too, babe.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Let's Unwind show with the Evans. We hope that you will gather your friends, pick up the phone, call somebody, say, look, the Evans are on. Y'all need to watch the Evans. Come listen to the Evans. Come watch the Evans. However get the content. Tonight is the night for all of us to come together and share. We have a very, very awesome topic for you tonight. It's entitled, Why Are the First Years of Marriage the Hardest? You definitely want to make sure you get your friends and family involved in this. We have a thing we do at our church. It's funny. We tell people go get your go-go juice. That could be your tea, your coffee, whatever,
Yes,
whatever you
whatever your
might,
favorite
whatever you,
beverage, what
yeah.
your prerogative,
Go
whatever your
get your
prerogative
go-go
is.
juice and let's get ready to unwind and
Yes.
unpack and figure out why the first few years of marriage is the hardest. So, babe, I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask you, when the first year that we were
hmm
married, what was the hardest thing for you as it pertains to being married? What did that look like for Jessica? Let's find that out. What did that look like
You
for
see how
Jessica?
you put me on the hot seat? I'm in the
Inquiring
hot seat
minds want
right
to
now.
know. Now, inquiring minds want to know. Talk to your boy.
Okay, so I would say the first years of marriage for me, there are a couple of things that I want to highlight coming into marriage. For one, this is my first marriage. That's number one. That's my first one, and my
First and
only
last.
marriage. I was can
First and last.
going to ask me a question. You see how he do? But yeah,
Showing
it
up.
was my first marriage and definitely last. But another point I want to mention is I didn't really have the knowledge, I didn't have the tools necessary to know how to be a wife, right? So there's that aspect. Also, being single, I mentioned it in our last show that we did last week. I've been single more than I've been married. So there were a lot of different things I've practiced being in and out of relationships most of my life. But marriage was something different. So marriage, of course, is a long-term commitment. It's a vow that you make with your husband or your wife, but then also God, right? So depending on your belief system. So
Mhm.
it is taken pretty seriously from that angle. And I just really didn't it was hard for me to mesh in the very beginning because if I'm being honest, as a single woman, I was very much independent. I was raised to be independent. I was groomed to be independent. And even though it had its pros, right? It had its pros because I'm very much a professional in my workplace and my career. It taught me how to manage finances. It taught me how to budget. It taught me how to really have discipline and structure. So I wouldn't say that it was completely, cons to being independent. But one thing I had to learn coming into marriage was to how to be interdependent.
That's good.
And so what that means for interdependency is just truly coming together and meshing with your spouse.
Right.
And I didn't know how to mesh. And not only did I not know how to mesh, I was fighting it, y'all. Because I was single all the time. So you're talking about trust, you're talking about pride. Let's be honest. You're talking about, dying to your pride, dying to yourself when it comes
Mm.
to that. But there were so many different elements. It's really a loaded question when my husband asks, why for you as the co-host, why was it the first years of marriage the hardest? That is really like that's
Boom.
vast.
Pow.
That is vast. But coming into this, so I know there are a few people that's joining us right now. Thank you. We thank you.
What's
Um,
up?
so for those who are not familiar with our dynamic, right? Of course, I mentioned this is my first marriage. My husband, this is his second marriage. So I will propose the question to you. What what about our marriage made it kind of difficult, especially given your experience being married for as long as you were in your previous marriage. Can you kinda go into that a little bit?
I think you kind of actually could somewhat answered it a little bit, what I thought
Mhm.
is interesting because um, being so independent as you
Mhm.
are, I think for the first year that was a little bit of a dynamic for me. I mean, we even had a conversation where I was like, "Can I do something for you, please?"
Mhm.
I mean, because she was always it's doing something,
Mhm.
always, here, this, that, the third, and it was just a little bit for me, like, okay,
That's perfect.
at what point will you allow me to really, be that partner with you? Um, and so it was a little bit of a strange place for me in trying to get used to that perspective. But then a second piece was, and you did such an awesome job of helping to come with an understanding. We
Mhm.
were having a disagreement, and in the disagreement, I said, "Well, I already know how to be married. I've been married for years.
He did,
This
you
is not a
guys.
problem for me. I know what marriage is like. I know what being a husband is like." Blah.
Mhm.
And she was like, "You were married, but you was not married to me."
Mhm.
And I think that was just that thing just like broke me down, opened me up, and really just it was like, whoa, wait a minute. And so really the understanding is you to the point that I made, I know how to be married. Okay, the entity of marriage is one thing. The
Mhm.
dynamic of being intimate with a person is a
It's
whole
completely
different
different, yeah.
perspective. And so
Mhm.
I think for me, it was just kind of getting the understanding that I've got to break down what I knew, where I have been, and really open up and recognize this is brand new. I've got to go through this process all over like I've never done it before. And
Yes.
that was hard because again, I kind of knew some things already. So that dynamic is interesting.
So it's fair to say there was an adjustment because, 1, you were married to someone else before, and then for me coming into marriage, being single most of my life, we still had 2 different dynamics or 2 different challenges
Right.
in our own right.
Right.
Okay.
Definitely, definitely. But what I said, guys, is so important, and I hope everyone hears that. The entity of marriage is one thing. The intimacy of marriage is a whole nother. And
Mhm.
so you really do have to, my wife said it earlier. In the Christian circles, we talk about dying to yourself. And the reality is, you've got to really die to yourself when you come
Yes.
into a marriage relationship.
It's
And
true.
now let me say that because you're becoming one, but watch
Mhm.
this. You're not losing yourself.
Right.
Now, that's a dynamic in there that a lot of people never really want to enter into a fully committed relationship because they feel like they're losing themselves. There's a difference in dying to yourself and losing yourself.
Mhm.
You don't lose your identity. You don't lose. My wife, she's still an independent woman. She still is very capable of doing what she has to do and all of that. But yet there still is an
I know how to
interdependency
calm it down.
that listen,
And
she
you
she
have to learn in marriage.
she ain't got no choice but
There's
to
no
calm it down.
compromising in
Yeah,
that
she ain't got
because
no choice. I be on her like, "Baby, look, come on now, let's get together."
yes.
But
So,
yeah, well,
yeah.
you have to understand that you have to mesh.
Yeah.
And the meshing when to her point, when you've been by yourself for a long period of time, let's be honest, it's when you're a family dynamic, let's say you don't have brothers and sisters, you're just a single child,
Mhm.
it's hard trying to get along with,
Oh, you may
and
see selfishness come
oh
out
my gosh. And so,
extremely in marriage.
okay.
Unintentionally though,
And so
but
the same thing
yep.
happens when you're single.
Mhm.
It's like, you don't know. So now you come into a relationship
Great analogy. Yeah.
you go to Chick-fil-A and you minding your business. Then you get halfway home like, oh shoot, my husband didn't eat. I I didn't even bother to ask him if he wanted anything to eat.
Yeah.
Whoa, what really? And then he said,
Mhm.
and so it's so you've got to really learn about
Don't just do
meshing.
it for the women, do it for the men too. See, balance, y'all.
I
Balance.
Well, let me say this.
Mhm.
You're right. I mean, and a lot of guys do that. However,
Mhm.
based on the dating perspective, what are we prone to do? We're prone to court you. We're prone to think
Mhm.
about you. We're prone to that's something that almost comes with the
So
territory
it doesn't
with that.
disappear in
It
marriage in the first years, you don't think?
not as much, not as much. But
Okay.
no, but again, it does it's not just male or female. It's
Mhm.
across the board.
Right.
Because for guys, hey, you used to going out with your boys. You used to
Mhm.
going out shooting pool and you just leave the house like you don't have a whole wife sitting there at the house and you want to go shoot pool with your guy. And it's like, wait, did you not forget you had somebody sitting up there with some hips and thighs sitting on the couch?
Yeah.
What? Let's so it does that dynamic is there. And when you're so used to that perspective, hey, I'm just gonna call my dog. It's 10 o'clock at night. Me and him gonna sit and we gonna talk for an hour. Wait. You
Right.
got a wife sitting right there next to you. Why are you
Mhm.
okay? So it's that first year is hard because you have already developed patterns.
Absolutely.
You have already developed hobbies,
And
mindsets.
and to be honest, you guys, when it comes to getting involved in marriage and things of that sort and making that kind of commitment, what I think is the hardest is you don't have a person every single day exposed to your flaws,
Mm,
exposed to insecurities that you may have not even noticed that were there.
mhm.
You don't have a person who is challenging you
Uh-oh.
daily. For the ones who are married, you all know about those great challenges our spouse, brings to the table daily, right? So,
She said daily.
the challenges are real. So when you're single, you can close off the world if you wanted to. You don't
Mhm.
have to embrace the feedback. You don't have to change. You don't have to even think about compromise if you don't want to, right?
Right,
Because you're not married to that individual. But when
right.
you're married, there is a sacrifice. And some of those characteristics that you may have, or those attributes that you had all your life, those cannot continue. Certain ones cannot continue in a marriage because, again, that's where selfishness, being selfish, being closed minded, all of those different things come into play. So, as we're talking about the dating, even before marriage, when you're dating, you're actually only meeting that representative, right? So
Definitely.
I want to just dive into this really deep, digging deeper, if I could. So when it comes down to the representative, a person will only share with you what they want you to know. They'll only show you a certain side of themselves. They'll
Mhm.
only show you or share, maybe childhood trauma, whatever the case may be, or their past relationships to their mindset, right? Doesn't mean that it's reality, but it's based off of their own perspective, if you
Mhm.
will. So, in doing all of that different things, yeah, when you come into marriage, it's like, okay, well, I thought you were this person. But then you get a reality check like, oh, wow, what did I get into? So, I also, and I'm not saying this is for our marriage itself, but I will say a lot of marriages are not only do they not have the tools, but
Mhm.
you married a representative, and that is a hard pill to swallow,
Right. But it
especially if a
is.
person isn't wanting to change or acknowledge or really grow together. And
Mhm.
it's like, okay, wow, I didn't know you were like this in the very beginning. We've been together for all these years. Let's say we've been dating for 6, 7 years. None of this really came out. Or you have the mindset marriage is going to change a person.
Uh,
Ladies, I'm speaking to you
yeah,
directly.
yeah.
A lot of women have the mentality that they can change a man.
Never.
Men don't necessarily come into marriage and make that commitment and ask your hand in marriage to change you. That's
Nope.
the difference. They wouldn't even, go to that step, go to that
Mhm.
measure of
Yep.
asking for your hand in marriage if their mindset was to change what they're willing to commit to for the
Amen.
rest of their life. But women, on the other
Mhm.
hand,
Mhm.
they'll accept a proposal and say, "Hey, I want a marriage. I want to be a wife. He's a great guy. I love him. We have chemistry, whatever the case may be." They accept that, and it's like, "Oh, but I don't like that. I need you to change that. I need you to change that." And it's like, "Okay, but you knew this before we got married, right? You knew I may have had kids. You knew I wasn't great with finances. You knew I was clubbing every night. You knew this. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of things that we don't pay attention to when we're single. And so we think, oh, marriage translates to, oh, they're going to be a brand new person. Not necessarily. You
Listen.
have to consider, okay, if I accept this proposal,
Mhm.
I'm accepting it. If they never change, I'm taking them as they are.
Watch
Now, if
this.
they change, that's one thing. But if they don't, that falls on me.
This is something somebody told me years ago, and I didn't think about it, but the reality is this. Watch this. Whatever you get in a person when dating, it magnifies when you get married. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, whatever you're getting in that individual, once you get married, that thing will magnify. And so if there's something bad going on, whatever is bad, that thing
Mhm.
is going to get worse. And so you have to be able to deal with understanding, okay, is that what I want to deal with? But I want to
Right.
bring up this point too, because I think, we talk about the marriage aspect, and
Mhm.
society paints this picture of marriage that's really amazing, and you have these movies Made in Manhattan, The Wedding Planner,
Mhm.
Cinderella, and all of
Right.
this. And so what they do is they pour into you this romanticism of
Mhm.
marriage. But people, hear me. This is not the marriage that they're showing you. And what you've been fantasizing about is not the marriage. You've been fantasizing about the wedding.
Mhm.
You've been fantasizing about the Prince Charming. He's
Mhm.
bringing you your glass slipper. They
Mhm.
never bother to peel back the layer and show you the work that goes into marriage. Because in
Absolutely.
order to be married to anyone,
Mhm.
it's going to take work.
Absolutely.
And it's gonna be hard
1000%.
work. Now, please hear me. That's not a bad thing, but it takes what we already talked about. You've got to die to self. That takes work.
Yes.
You've got to be able to submit
Daily,
to each other.
hourly.
That takes work. You've got to kill your pride. That
Yes.
takes work.
Mhm.
There's a lot of work that goes into making a marriage successful. And for whatever reason, is we have this mindset that we already know what relationships. Remember, I told you I made the mistake because I was married for so long that I already knew what to expect. But no, I didn't, because this is a whole new person. So
Yes.
listen, just because you date people don't mean you know how to be married. You
Absolutely.
know how to date. Watch. You know how to date. You know how to get mad, and you know how to break up. But in marriage, you can't get mad and decide to break up.
Mhm.
I mean, now if they slap you upside the head or something,
Yeah,
that's a whole different
there's certain
perspective.
things that's grounds for
But by
divorce.
and large, most of you are not conditioned to putting in the work that it takes to make that marriage successful night
Mhm.
in and night out, 365, 24/7.
Mhm.
And you can't take no days off. You can't
Mhm.
take it. Is all about understanding that the marriage itself takes
That's
work. And
good.
so the first few years of marriage, it's hard because you're already conditioned to break up. That's all you've done. He offended me. How dare he? I'm never going to text him again. I'm never going to call her again. Oh, but now you get married, they offend you. I'm never going to. Oh, no, 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 no. Wait a minute. No, you can't do that. You
Mhm.
made a vow. You made a commitment to be married. You made a
Mhm.
commitment to die to self now and to
Mhm.
dig deep inside and find out if maybe there's some issues that you've got some deal with. Maybe there's some growing up that you got to do. And
Mhm.
nobody ever called you out on the immaturity that was in you. And now you're married and you don't want to deal with the immaturity because you're saying it's the other person's fault. No, it's you. So the
Mhm.
first few years are very,
Your
very
chooser is
difficult.
broken.
Your shoes is broken, but your first few years is difficult because you don't come in with the mindset that there
Mhm.
has to be work done at the beginning because all you're thinking
Absolutely.
about is that glass slipper.
Absolutely. And Thomas, you touched on so much, babe. It really did. But it's also having realistic expectations. To sum all of those examples up, you have to be realistic. If you have deal breakers and you're like,
Oh,
look, I don't want a man who got children. I don't want a man who's this. I don't want a man. If that's your standard and that's your expectation,
ain't nothing wrong with that.
nothing is wrong with that.
Be you, boo.
Nothing is wrong with that. But what is wrong is you having a silent deal breaker, and
Oh,
then you're getting involved in a marriage and you're making that commitment only to gaslight
uh,
your spouse when you get married.
man. Talk about the gaslighting. What's the gaslighting look like, baby?
So, when it comes to gaslighting, there's different forms of gaslighting, but it's really almost a ambush situation. So you're constantly being negative, you're constantly nitpicking. It's always the other person, right? So when it's always the other person, it could come in the form of verbal abuse. Usually, gaslighting is a form. It is a
Hmm.
form of verbal abuse.
Yes.
So when it comes down to those different things, you have to understand that you are responsible for your decision. Nobody else can force you and your grown self to make a decision such as marriage. That is a
Mhm.
lifetime commitment.
Yes.
So someone could sway you. You could watch certain things, like my husband mentioned movies, and it's like, okay, well, I want marriage. Maybe that's your lifetime goal. Maybe that is a dream of yours, and you always dreamed of it, but you have to be careful into who you accept as your mate,
Oh, that's good. That's good.
because that is not solely on just because a person proposed to you doesn't mean, okay, that's my husband.
But
You
but
have to be
but
able
I'm
to
40 years
reflect.
old. I got to get married
You
now.
have to be able to reflect, you have to be able to take inventory, and you have to be real and honest with you. So
My
many people
biological clock is kicking.
so many people are not honest. You're rushing. You're rushing into something you know nothing about. And I'm
Mm,
saying you know nothing about because, again, if you're one who came from a broken family, maybe mom and dad weren't together, had you out of wedlock, whatever the case may be, and you saw toxic relationship most of your life, maybe you were involved in toxic
mhm,
relationships,
mhm.
maybe you were one that was a serial relationship person. Hey, look, I'm talking about
Serial
me, right?
dater.
Serial dater. No, I wasn't a serial dater. There's a difference. I didn't date. I was in
Oh yeah, she
relationships,
wasn't dating.
locked down. Right. We not dating. That means you could date other people. What we talking about? Oh, you're my boyfriend. So that's kind of how that went. So don't be the single Jessica. But no, honestly, it was just one of those situations where the first years of marriage was just really hard because, again, I just felt like there was a lot that, transparently speaking, we went through.
Oh yeah,
We went
no
through
doubt.
a lot before we got married.
Yes.
Coming from, his divorce, the separation, even things I was holding into. I was in a toxic relationship. I was a victim of domestic violence right before him and I began dating. So for those who have been in those kind of relationships, you already know there's really oh my gosh, you really have to go through a lot to regain
You gotta heal.
yourself
You
and
definitely have
to
to heal.
heal
Mhm.
appropriately. So yes, there was a lot of things that we went through. There was a lot of baggage that we had to sort through, but we were willing, right? We were willing to go to premarital counseling. We were willing to go through marital counseling because it didn't stop now that we said I do.
Correct.
We continued because I'm very big on preventative maintenance, and I subscribe to the fact that it's not my husband, it's my baggage, right? So everything that happened in my life is my baggage. It's
Right.
not fair to have me carry or have him carry my baggage in
Correct.
any stretch of the imagination. I should be coming into marriage with a lighter load. I should be lessening, he should be wanting to lessen his load.
Correct.
So it's a mutual respect. I believe that when you bring baggage to the table, and whether it's emotional baggage, whatever the case may be, when you bring those to the table in marriage and you're not sorting through, you're not getting the proper help, you're not reaching out to anyone, you're not reading self-help books or relationship, if you're not doing any of that,
Mhm.
and it's like you're just going day by day being married, yes, there's a lot of things that you haven't sorted through, and you may think, oh, I'm perfectly fine, I'm happy, I'm not depressed. I don't have anxiety. I'm funny. I'm goofy. All of those different things, right? We look at our personalities to mean, especially for women, we look at, oh, well, I get along with people. People love me. I love being around people, whatever the case may be. And it's like, oh, that means I'm healed. That means I'm whole because I can get along with everybody. No, it doesn't.
That means that your vision is distorted.
Right.
because you're not really looking
And if
at it from
you can get
another
along
person's
with
eyes.
everybody, I'll give you guys this freebie. Most more times out of 10, that means you don't have certain boundaries.
Uh-oh. Wow. You just gonna do
Because
that?
everybody you can appease and everybody can appease you. So
You just gonna do that?
I'm
Really?
just saying, I'll give you guys that one for free. But go ahead.
She gonna give y'all that one. She shot, pop, pop, shots fired. I'm gonna give you that one for free. Really? She forgot to tell you the duck. My
Oh,
God.
my bad.
Yeah, yeah, totally forget the duck. Boom. But no, listen. But the reality is, it should be the opposite. And we want to, tonight our purpose is to try to help you understand that it can be different.
Yes.
Instead of the first couple of years of marriage being the hardest, why not let the first couple of years of marriage be the most productive, where you're able
Mhm.
to come in and build a solid foundation,
Right.
where you're able to come in, to her point, and not have baggage. The worst thing that you can do is be oblivious to the fact that you yourself could be a toxic person.
Oh, man. Self-righteousness? What? I can't do any wrong.
Oh,
Nobody's ever told me that. You're the first.
this is
Okay, well, I don't care what mommy, daddy, and all them done told you. They couldn't choose you, right? They laid up, did what they did. You were the product, right? So in marriage, you choose. There is a decision that takes place. So
uh,
yes, mom may be thinking, "Oh, you're the best person in the world. I just love my son." Nothing against my mother-in-law. I love you. He is awesome. But no, I'm just the my son can't do no wrong and he's just perfect and all this other stuff. Okay,
that ain't my mom.
that
Love you,
that
mom.
may be, her perspective because again, she's not married to you. She may
Yeah,
have raised you
there's a lot of
and she
mamas out
knows
there.
what she raised and
Hmm.
she knows what she put inside of you. That's the
Right.
key. When mothers are just like, look, my son this, my son that, that's because they know who they raised. That's
Ideally,
ideally.
ideally,
But
ideally.
you also have had teenage years, you've had adult years, you've had your own experiences.
Yep,
So parents only know to a certain degree, right? We have people on
it's
the
true.
line here who may think their child is the most innocent person in the world. When they get to school, I beg to differ.
Listen,
So,
I tell people all the time, and some of you have heard me say this before.
yeah.
I don't trust a person after the age of 6 months. When you're 6 months old, you know how to lie. When you're 6 months old, you know how to steal. When you're 6 months old, you know how to cheat. I don't trust you after that point because you
Yeah.
already.
Know how
I've
to
seen two.
manipulate the
I've seen.
system.
Look, you 6 month old baby, and you try to take something from them, and what's that baby doing? It moving. How you know to do that on?
Yep.
Sometimes at 3 months old. Okay, you know what? See right there. If you know how to do that right there, then that tells me when you get away from it, nah. But yeah,
Yeah.
but the reality is, guys, we have to understand that it is going to take work to make your marriage productive. It
Yes.
is not an instant fall in love. Oh, we've got this thing. Because the
No.
reality is, you are dealing with two different people, two
Coming
different
together.
personalities, and you
Yeah.
come together and you're trying to figure out how to make all of that, come. And and I don't care if we have the same color together. Just because we like the same color does not mean we're going to have a match made in
Mm-mm.
heaven. Just because we both might like the movie School Days doesn't mean no, 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 no. Just because we both like the what's that
Oh, we're
movie?
born in the same month, or
Oh,
the
what
astrology signs and
love and
stuff.
basketball.
Yep.
Just because you love loving, no, that
Does
doesn't mean
not
you're
mean
going to
a
have a
thing.
good marriage.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to have a good marriage is when you're willing to peel back that onion, the layers of that onion, and go to work. Let
Right.
me work on my personality. Let me work on my mindset. Let me, try to
Work
do
on my
whatever I have to do to,
trauma.
please my wife. Because watch this. There's things, and we learned this, especially myself, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm very optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
Always laughing, joking. Uh, you know, uh, Crazy sense of humor, sarcastic,
Mm-hmm.
not realizing that through the sarcasm, it's unsafe to her because the
Mm-hmm.
sarcasm looks to her like a whole other perspective, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm being funny, and she like ain't nothing funny about that. What?
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. So now I've got to learn to change that and adjust that in a way that I still can be who I have to be, and she can understand it. And so there's a lot that
Right.
goes into it. So you've got to be willing to get that mindset to bring the minds together.
Marriage is tailor made. It's not a cookie cutter. size fit all. One size fit all. It is not.
It's not.
And, I believe and my heart goes out because I know that oftentimes we hear about these celebrities and we hear about so many different people who we just never expected to get divorced or have to go through certain issues. And the reality is, even with us being at this level, and I know God has so much greater in store, right? This is just the beginning, y'all. So when it comes down to that, just to fathom the pressure that you have to perform because that is your life. Your life is based off of people. Your life is based off of sales. You have to sell yourself every single day, whether
Right.
you feel like it or whether you don't.
Right.
And so when it comes down to these celebrities, traveling is involved, being away from your mate for so long. So yes, it becomes even more challenging to really work together and go through therapy and go through couples counselings and things of that sort. So my heart goes out to them because I will say, and notice I said in the very beginning, before we got married, we went through premarital counseling because we
Mhm.
were adamant. I was adamant because
I
I
was.
always viewed marriage for me.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't any divorce in that. Like, if I chose to get married, that was it for me. And so I was just so gun holding. We talk about it all the time. I was so gun. Okay, we're going to counseling. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to bring up. Okay, you want to
Yeah.
have a check in? And so it's just those
Yep.
kind of things like that because I never want to number one suppress anything
Right.
to where it becomes a issue later on down the road. And
Mhm.
what we talk about the first years of marriage, I felt guilty of this, right? Because in our culture, they talk about, they men bash all the time, but for women, we get bashed too, right? We get bashed if we bring something to the table. It's called nagging, right? So I always had this mindset, I don't want to be a nag. I don't want to be a nag. And that was killing the first years of my marriage because what did I do? I suppressed
Suppress. Mhm.
every single emotion for the benefit of okay, I mentioned it one time, I'm not going to mention it again,
Mhm.
thinking that he would have caught it or it would have penetrated. I was looking for every word I spoke from a feeling perspective to penetrate him to the point where, okay, wow, we had this conversation, we had this dialogue. Let's move forward. And I know exactly what to do moving forward.
Hey,
That's
that's a great point. Stick
mhm,
right there for a moment because I wonder how many people struggle, women in particular, struggle where to like she said, I want every single word. I want it to penetrate. I want that to just go through.
penetrate his soul.
People, that's not realistic. And one of the things that we learned in counseling is that when it comes to an issue, you've got to repeat yourself over and over and over until the other person shows you that they've gotten it.
Mhm.
And so one of the biggest problems that a lot of ladies have is they feel like, well, I don't want to keep repeating myself, or I'm
No, there's
tired of
some that
repeating
will.
myself.
I know some women who
Uh,
don't care. I will let you have it.
Wow.
It don't even
A
matter.
lot of women
So,
will say, "Well,
yeah.
I don't feel like I should have to repeat myself."
Mhm.
You repeat yourself until they get it. Because
But
what
what if it's
happens
being
is,
taken for granted? I
well,
I wanna play the devil's advocate on that. So,
but how do you know it's being taken for granted? Because the other
no, I'm
person,
saying if the person keeps repeating themselves and you don't see any kind of change,
well,
at
then,
some point, it's like, okay, you're not taking what I'm saying as face value.
well, it just depends on the type of on the
Mhm.
individual that's being
Or the
spoken to,
situation.
or yeah, because now it's about, okay, is something wrong with the form of communication, or is something wrong with your hearing? Let's figure out what's happening. And to that point, that's where we have to say that's where counseling comes in at in a major way. My wife and
Mhm.
I do relationship counseling all the time. We do individual
Go ahead
counseling.
and plug that in real quick for
No,
the
but
people.
that's where that comes in, where you now bring a third party in to say,
Yeah.
hey, this is what we're looking at. But the
Mhm.
point primarily is that you cannot get tired of repeating yourself,
Yes.
because
No, you can't.
what's happening is you are projecting. You're projecting that the other person's supposed to understand. And maybe they heard you, but maybe the way it was communicated. That's why one of the important things that we talk about is when someone's talking to you, to always repeat what you've heard.
Yes.
That allows the other individual to, one, know that you've gotten it, but
Mhm.
secondly, it allows them to hear how you've
Mhm.
heard it
Yep.
because you'll
So if
repeat
I
it
heard
back.
you correctly.
Right. If I heard you correctly, this is what you said. Then you have the opportunity to
Mhm.
say, well, whoa, wait, no, that's not the way I said that. Oh, okay. So the way I heard
Now
it
you
was
could
wrong.
bring clarity, and you're
Now you bring
able to bring
clarity.
clarity
Right.
instead
But
of it being a misunderstanding from the very
correct.
beginning.
And so the worst thing you can do is project
Mhm.
that, oh, this is just going to, and that's the wrong thing to do because now you're taking for
Right.
granted how the other person processes. Everybody processes. That's the other key, guys. Everybody processes differently.
Mhm.
So just because we're married doesn't mean we process the same way.
Oh, that would be
Oh,
whew,
oh my God.
that
She
would be
processes one
heavenly.
way and I process a totally different way. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It
Man.
just is what it is. So you come into marriage and you have to understand from the very outset, there's going to be a processing difference. And so
Mhm.
I have to
That's so
figure
true.
out how you process,
Mhm.
and you have to figure out how I process so that we can bring our processes together.
And communicate based off of how the other person processes, because
That's
you
it.
ultimately, you want them to get it. You wanna feel heard. That is the objective when bringing your feelings to the
Right.
table. You want to feel heard, you wanna feel understood, you wanna feel valued,
Right.
right?
So again, I don't care how many times you repeat it,
Mhm.
how is the other person processing what you're saying?
Absolutely.
That's why delivery is so important.
Mhm.
What's the delivery you're giving? How are
Mhm.
you bringing it across? I mean, it's so many things that goes into this thing of marriage that you've got to come in with an open mind. You've got to
Mhm.
come in with an open heart, and you have to come in with what we call intentionality.
Yes, being very
Be
intentional.
being intentional about making this thing work, being intentional about making sure that you're trying to do the best that you can to meet the other person's need based on
Mhm.
what they've communicated to you, not based on what you've done years ago.
Right.
Mm. You see, that based on what you've done years ago. Oh, I know. I always use the example. My wife is not the type of person who just likes chocolate.
Mhm.
So it doesn't make sense on Valentine's Day for me to go get a box of chocolate and say, oh, well, every Valentine's Day, chocolate works. So let me just go and get that box of chocolate. My wife will throw that box of chocolate in my face.
And listen, I'm so glad you brought that. I wouldn't do that. But,
Yes, she would.
one of the things, and we shared this on so many other podcasts, I was the representative to the point where if there was a food, and this is a real life story, he's using chocolate, but if there was something I didn't like and I knew he took pleasure in it,
Oh my God.
to feel like I'm not to embrace, right? So my twisted mindset was, "Oh, I wanna embrace what he likes. Even though I don't like it, I can sacrifice." So I think of love as sacrificial, right?
Mhm.
So when it came to that, I'm telling you my twisted mindset. So instead of me communicating, "Honey, I really don't like that. Can we try something different and meet in the middle?" It was like, "Okay, well, I just went along with it, right?" And so oftentimes in marriage, it could be something where you have a certain level of expectation. You have a standard, and this is what makes the first years of marriage so hard. You have an expectation, you have a standard, and you don't communicate that. So it's like almost to the chocolate perspective. You keep accepting a certain thing and you're getting disappointed because that person is staying in that lane.
You're
And
disappointed because you never bothered to communicate what you
right.
need.
Right, and on the flip side of that, let's say you do communicate exactly what you need and you're looking for, but they're still not delivering it. It could be whatever the case, whether it's personal, whether it's
Mhm.
financial, there whatever the case may be, but it's still a perspective of, "Okay, this is really what I communicated and I'm not seeing it, I'm not seeing progression towards it," and it does become a little discouraging. And the biggest thing for me, kinda going back to the question that you asked originally at the beginning of the podcast, I think for me, I and I shared this with my husband during our check-in. Y'all getting into our bedroom, so to speak. But marriage is an investment, right? I didn't I didn't get married to feel like I'm alone, right? And I'm not saying that he makes me feel alone. I'm just saying for any person out there, you're not going to get married and make that type of commitment to feel
Right.
alone,
Right.
to feel like you're the only one handling certain things. That's not what it's for. It's for you to have a helpmate and someone to help you. You may not think the same, you may not process the same,
Mhm.
but it's understanding, okay, you're treating this as an investment just as much as I am. But when I'm investing more, or if I feel like I'm investing more, contrary, if my husband feels like he's investing more, that's what makes the first years of marriage hard because it's like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
doing everything I know how to do. I'm
Uh-huh.
doing everything that my mate is telling me that she or he wants,
Mhm.
but I'm still not seeing the progress. The I'm not seeing the benefit
Right.
behind doing all of this investment. There's a benefit or there's not one. It's black and white. Either it's going to be an incline or it's going to be a decline, whatever.
Period.
But
Period.
but in saying that, it's really black and white when it comes to investments. So marriage is not black and white, y'all.
Mm.
It's not. There's going to be days where you feel like you're giving 100%, and that person beside you is like, I don't really got it today. I don't even really want to talk to you. I just want to be in my little bubble. I'm gonna give you about 10. That's what I'm feeling like today, 10.
Yep.
And so when we get down to this, and let's say you're both in your careers, you have to think about it. Most of that time spent away from each other is in the workplace, right? Is out in the field. So when you get home, and a lot of married couples suffer with this, right? Because when you get home, it's like you're so burnt out. You've
Right.
invested in that job, you've
Right.
invested in that business. You come home and it's like, oh, well, I don't really want to give you too much of my time. I don't want to communicate. I don't want to talk.
Mhm.
I'd rather just watch the game. I'd
Mhm.
rather just watch this movie. I'd rather just go talk on the phone to one of my boys or one of my girls. I don't really want to, invest in knowing that you need that quality time because
Right.
that is what's really going to nurture the marriage. And so, yes, oftentimes wives may feel neglected, husbands may feel neglected. This is why the first years of marriage are so hard, but you have to communicate exactly what you need.
Yep. I mean, great point because the reality is you invest so much of your time doing so many things that you have to understand that marriage is worth the investment. Marriage is worth the investment. We talk a lot of times about the counseling piece, and a lot of people, particularly men, don't feel the need to do counseling. They don't feel the need that counseling is important. So they're not willing to put in the investment to make sure that they can get the necessary tools to make their marriage work.
Mhm.
That's horrible. You would invest. I say it all the time. You'll invest in a car. You'll
Right.
invest in a sound system. You'll invest in shoes.
Mhm.
You'll spend money on J's before
Right.
you'll spend money to invest in your marriage.
Mhm.
Wow, where are your priorities, especially during the first couple of years of the marriage?
Right.
I did when we got married. I took an entire year, and I told my wife, I'm not. I've been pastoring for years, guys. I
Mhm.
told her, I said, once we get married and everything, I'm not doing anything for a year. I'm 1 year
And
of my
he held
life.
up to that.
My one
Yeah.
year of my life is going to be devoted to being your husband and learning you and
Mhm.
studying you and making sure that I can do everything I can to make sure that you come first and let you know that you come first. So I didn't
Mhm.
take any speaking engagement. I shut down the
And that's
church.
big.
I didn't
That is
listen. I've been in
huge.
ministry for over 30 years,
That is
but I made it
huge.
a point to let every the world understand that I'm married to my wife. I ain't married to no church. I'm married
Mhm.
to this woman.
You better say that.
Hey, look, to this day, I'm married to this woman. I ain't married to no church. That church can be that. Look,
Or
them folk.
anybody
You
else.
better get your own prayer life. I gotta. I mean, but no. So I really took the time that whole year because I understood the investment that was going to be needed to give my wife. I
Yeah.
understood the investment that and the growth that she would have to go through and certain
Mhm.
things she would deal with. So after that year, I told her, I said, okay, babe, I've given you that year. We've done what we did. So now, we'll transition. I still didn't just jump right into
Mhm.
ministry. We notice what I said, we
Mhm.
transitioned together.
Mhm.
We transitioned together. Now here we are. We're both, founders and pastors of a church and ministering and doing what God called us to do. But we gradually move forward. But first things first, marriage.
Mhm.
Let me
Because
take
if
care
this
of
isn't
this.
right,
I can't do nothing
you
else.
can't go for
I
it.
can't I can't do
Mm-mm.
nothing else. I gotta make sure this smile,
And
that
I'm
I
not
got
gonna look.
that right there. I need to make sure that is where it
And God
is.
is so strategic, right, you guys? Because I told you this is our relaunch season. You hear me? God is so funny because even if my husband were to, and he's done that before, right? Bumped your head doing it in ministry,
Yeah, yeah,
home not happy,
yeah,
whatever, you're still okay. That's my husband, right? He'll do that because it served as an outlet, a healthier
yeah.
option, a healthy outlet.
Right.
Okay. For me, let this home be unhappy. Y'all ain't gonna see me. That's
Oh
evidence.
snap.
Okay, if y'all ain't find out. But
Oh my
no,
God,
not to
she's
even
funny.
say it's unhappy. But no, it's just one of those things where if it's stuff that we have to work on,
Oh,
y'all, look,
listen,
we newlyweds. I ain't
listen.
playing no game.
My
Look,
wife would not. She would not come to our
I give
church.
y'all a hard
She would not
time.
come on the air.
I feel like I give y'all a hard time, but no, I'm
Oh my
harder on my
God.
husband in our marriage because I'm like,
Y'all have
look,
no idea.
we gotta get this right.
Y'all see
This
these black eyes? I've
not
lost a
hard
couple
in
of
that
teeth.
way.
I
I'd be like, babe, we gotta be proactive. It's preventative maintenance. We gotta get into this. We gotta invest. We gotta. That's me, y'all. So pray for my husband. Stretch your hands. Just pray for this
Shondo,
sexy
Shondo. Uh-oh.
blessing of mine.
Yeah, please, because she ain't lying, y'all. She ain't lying.
But no, that's
She,
the difference. But God sends you what you need, right? Okay, I say all that to say, right? So he don't want you up there fake. Look, he wants you to make sure your house is in order first and foremost, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You
that part.
can't be as effective as you need to be being divided.
Yeah,
That is not, that's not what happens, even in scripture.
yeah, yeah. So
So when it comes down to that, look, we gotta take care. And so for like I mentioned, the first years of marriage, it's really about knowing that person,
right.
knowing them beyond the dating perspective, really
Yes.
getting to know them and understanding, okay, there may be certain things I may not like, there may be certain things may not agree with, but that's what makes marriage so beautiful, right? There is a meeting of a minds that
Yep.
takes place.
Yes.
So it's not just your way or the highway. It's not just, okay, well, this is, how I've always done it. So you're just going to roll with the program because I'm the head of household. I'm the leader. I'm the cover. And so you
Wrong.
do as I say.
Uh, uh, uh. Nah, good way to
So
be
it
exit left.
Right. That's
Yeah,
not what
exit
submission is,
left.
y'all. But yeah, it's really about finding exactly what works for you in your marriage and in your
Right.
household. You could try to follow someone else's blueprint, you'll fail every single time because again, marriage is just truly unique in such a way that you can try to emulate, but it may not work.
Because listen, you're a very unique, authentic individual. Your marriage is going to be authentic and unique. And you
Mhm.
need to be able to work within the confines of the authenticity in your relationship.
Say that.
And that's the
It's
other
so
issue because
important.
you come in again with these preconceived mindset.
We're
Well,
gonna talk about that.
this is the way
Ooh, we're talking about
grandma
that
and
next
them
week.
marriage was. This is the way my mom and daddy and them's marriage was. That doesn't mean it's the way it's got to be for you because you're a different person. You're authentic. You're unique. So you have to operate within the
Mhm.
confines of the authenticity within your relationship.
That's it.
Marriage is a beautiful thing.
So beautiful.
I
Mhm.
wouldn't trade it for anything. Now, she makes it fairly easy. I mean, I can look at that face all day, every day, and I do. I look at that face. I look at the backside of her. I'm is always
I make it that
enthralled.
easy.
I'm always enthralled. I see you side eyeing me. I don't know why you side eyeing
I
me. You
make it
know,
that easy, babe.
it's
You
you.
gon' you gon' front for the people like
No,
that. You don't have challenging days.
I didn't say
We
you
gonna
what.
be real
No, no,
now.
I didn't say you wasn't a trip.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
didn't say
At
you wasn't
least
a
he
trip.
brings that to the
No,
table,
I
y'all. We
did
gotta be
not say that. Now you definitely a trip. Oh, Jesus.
okay. You want to
But
highlight the
for the
positive. I get
most
you.
part, you make marriage very, it's a pretty. I
Oh,
mean, she's something,
yeah.
and so, but marriage is a beautiful thing when
Yes,
it's done right.
absolutely.
It's a
Hmm.
beautiful thing when two people really want to come together and make it work. It is a
Absolutely.
beautiful thing when you don't have the whole world in your relationship.
I'm
It's
trying to
a
tell
beautiful
y'all,
thing when you can learn how to communicate appropriately.
there's such a luxury in that.
Oh my God.
You don't get into okay, let's go. Yeah, please, let's go here before I know you try to end on a good note, but
Oh, it.
I
Wait,
have
wait. Hold on.
can I
Y'all
finish?
duck.
Because
Y'all duck. Shots coming. Shots fired. She about to fire shots again. I hear it.
also the first years of marriage are very extremely hard. Letting people in your business,
Ooh.
allowing opinionated people who never done been married before, don't even know how to spell marriage.
Oh.
You're taking advice and calling it wisdom, but you're taking advice from these individuals. You're going on to all of these different social media outlets. You're listening and hearing from all these different people. You don't know how they live day in and day out because they're really not being transparent. They're just sharing what they
They trying
may
to make
perceive
sales.
as sales
They
too.
trying to make sales. So
Okay,
they making
Gabe
you
gonna be
think.
blunt with them.
Oh, it's a reality.
They
They
just trying to
making
get
sales.
views,
They getting
right?
the views.
Yep,
They laying out on at the swimming pool in the bathing suit.
right.
He cut and he
Mm-hmm.
they making
It's about money,
sales.
right?
They making sales.
So,
And they can't keep a relationship to say, man,
but listen, I had to throw that in there because we're not going to come back to this topic. So,
no,
again,
I don't do celebrity
I
relationships.
wanted to just share that because it's so important. I know you love mom, I know you love dad, I know you love sister and cousin and all of them. But again, hear
Leave
me,
them
and it's not just about the
outside.
singles who give counsel to
Uh oh.
married.
Uh oh.
It's also those married couples too.
Uh
You
oh.
got to watch out for the married folk because
Oh.
again, marriage, if you're not consistently
Shots
doing
fired.
inventory, if you're not consistently, seeking God about your decisions, seeking God about your marriage and all of those different things, then yes, you're going to fall victim into accepting that dysfunction.
You mean they could be married 30 years and not happy, sleeping in separate bedrooms,
Yeah, I
trying to
mean,
give
like, oh
somebody
man,
advice?
I would have left him a long time ago. Nigga, you still got a man upstairs. Leave me that alone. I can't even. Y'all know what I want to say. But
You
how you
stupid.
gonna tell
Oh
me to leave my marriage
my. You did.
and you got a roommate?
Uh,
Make it make sense. So again, people watching, I just had to end this.
oh, she is
Hopefully,
a man.
I'm just saying
Y'all
you
see
gotta
what I
be
got to deal
careful
with?
with that.
Y'all see what I got to do?
Y'all gotta be careful. Got to be more careful.
Oh, it's hilarious. Listen, but no, but she's so right. Even married people in marriage counsel, you've got to, we call it discernment. You've got to be able to have the utmost discernment of what's going on because everybody, again, is authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is different, and you
Yep.
have to understand that. So what worked for you, what's working for you may not have worked for mama.
Mm-hmm.
What worked for mama didn't work for grandmama. And so
Mm-hmm.
we can't always just assume that just because
Right.
people been married 30, 40, 50, and you hear people say that, oh my God, they've been married for such a long time. I long
That
to
don't
get married
equate to
like that.
happiness
Let
and
me watch
wholeness.
this.
Come
Watch
on
this.
now.
I was married for 30 years.
Kill that narrative.
I was married for 30 years. Very unhappy the entire time. I was married a long time.
But wouldn't know it.
It put up the front, preached through it, taught through it, traveled the country through it. Very miserable. Married for years. Didn't my spouse and I just did not click.
Mm-hmm.
And I was married for 30 years. So no, I don't even subscribe to I shut that down because I lived it, I walked it, and I could tell you emphatically,
You know how to
just because they
exist through
double
it.
digits don't mean nothing to me. Folks be on
Mm-mm.
Facebook, "Oh, we've been married 16 years and I love my wife." Shut up. You don't even hardly put your wife on your Facebook page.
Tolerance, y'all, tolerance.
Compliance. You're compliant.
Being comfortable, y'all. It's
No,
called comfortability.
it's com it's
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 called "It's cheaper to keep it." Can
it's
I get an
called
amen?
faking the funk. It's
It's che
called faking the funk. Stop faking the funk and be real about what's
Ooh,
going on. That's right. That's
ooh,
what that is. Stop faking the funk, folks. And the
sheesh.
reality is, folks can tell if you listen. Yeah, you can tell
I
if
done
my
stirred
wife
my
and I.
husband up. I'm sorry,
You
y'all.
can tell if my wife and I are excited about each other. You can tell if we actually like each other or not.
Mhm.
I
You
mean,
sure can.
I
Yep.
mean that the bottom line. It's just you. I can love you all day, but I don't like you. You can see that.
Mhm.
But you can genuinely tell when couples love each other and like each other.
Yep.
That's a marriage I want to deal with. I'll take some advice from you because I can tell you like being around each other
Yeah,
and you
give me the
love each
like.
other. Give me that like. Listen, because it sometimes it's hard to
'Cause
like each other.
look,
Sometimes we sit next to each other like,
like,
who is this person I'm
ooh.
married to? Boy, what am I doing now?
But thank you all. Our time is running up, but we would be amiss to really share with you that our next show is going to be
Talk about it.
January 30th,
Talk about it.
and we're going to be discussing preconceptions about marriage. So we
Preconceived
didn't get into
notions.
that tonight too much. We didn't dibble and dabble in that, but
Preconceived notions. Who
preconceptions
you think
about
you are
marriage.
coming up
Yeah.
into this marriage with all that,
Mhm.
who you think you is.
Preconceptions, and it goes back to the fairy tale. It goes back to all of those different things that we watch, what we're exposed to, what we've seen. So
Stop
yeah,
watching Cinderella, y'all.
please join us back. We're here every Monday night at
What's
9
the cartoon?
p.m.
Anastasia.
Oh, Anastasia's
See,
mom.
stop
No,
watching
no, no, no.
Anastasia. The
Anastasia
Lady and the Tramp.
Anastasia was more realistic because
Ana-
Anastasia had some attitude about her.
Lady
She
and the
really
Tramp.
did.
See,
That's my movie, y'all. I
look, all of
can't
that.
talk about Anastasia like that.
What's that show? My baby, Aladdin.
Oh man, he done
See,
went there with it.
I'm hurting y'all because I'm getting to the real. Those are the ones that's got y'all coming into these relationships all jacked
But
up,
Aladdin was a liar. See,
and
that's
then
what I'm
60
saying.
days
I can,
later, you out the door.
but no, I can get with Aladdin because it shows some realistic traits. Aladdin was lying. He was asking the genie to make him this and make him that to appease somebody else. That is realistic in the dating world. We talked about that. Anastasia, the same thing. She was so hurt, didn't really know who to trust, didn't have.
Anastasia was an angry black woman.
Yeah, she has some sister in there.
She was
But
an angry black woman. She put boy in the bathtub while he was paralyzed. That's what Anastasia wasn't no joke.
no, how
Look,
you gonna go to Tyler Perry on them from
listen, that was
Anastasia?
Anastasia. I bet you that's where he got the storyline from.
We'll check out Tyler and see
Yeah,
y'all.
Tyler, holler
We'll
at your
let
boy
you
and tell
know.
me if you
We'll
got
let
that
you
from
know.
Anastasia or not, so I can prove to the world where you got that storyline from. I know where you got that scene from. I'm like, oh, I seen that in the cartoon. But look, we appreciate you guys joining us tonight on Let's
Yes.
Unwind with the Oven. Uh, please tell your family and friends, in the Facebook world, tag and share,
Please
YouTube,
keep resharing.
hit the bell up top and
Our
and
YouTube
join us.
channel, go ahead. Let's Unwind with the Evans 1232. Subscribe,
1232.
subscribe, subscribe.
Yeah, so all the different platforms that we're on, y'all gonna be seeing us on a couple other things or stuff like that
Yeah.
too. Thank you guys so much for your prayers. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. We are out of here. We love you guys so much. Thank you for supporting us.